The love expressed between women is particular and powerful because we have had to love in order to live. Love has been our survival. Audre Lorde. I would like to welcome everybody to the Fierce Her Story live poetry performance. Live from the Contemporary Arts Center Black Box Theater, produced by the Contemporary Arts Center, Collab, Public Education Program, Queens Village, and Renegade Babe Studio. I'm your host, Danielle Bush of Queens Village. Fierce is a powerful collaborative exhibition and window into the world of Black motherhood by Renegade Babe Studio and visual activist Jeni Jenkins, featuring multimedia prints, photographs, oral histories, and spoken word, and providing space for 10 Black mothers, stories to be broadcast in a world where speaking about being a Black woman and about Black motherhood is still considered a radical act. This evening, we are celebrating a successful run of the exposition and gathering to hear these amazing women's stories. The timeliness of this performance during Black Maternal Health Week reminds us that it is always important to elevate Black mamas' voices and perspectives around issues that impact them. The show has been running at the Contemporary Arts Center since March 26th and will be up and running for public viewing until April 17th this Saturday. In addition, prints are for sale at the website FierceHerStory.com, and all proceeds go directly to the artist. With that, I'd like to call Carla, Batres, Kilvin to the stage to talk more about the Contemporary Arts Center's Collab program.
Thank you, Danielle. Hello, everyone. My name is Carla Batres Kilvin, and I am the Community Programs Administrator at the Contemporary Arts Center. On behalf of the Contemporary Arts Center, I would like to thank ArtsWave for sponsoring Collab Fierce Black Mother Story and Queens Village and Jeni Jenkins of Renegade Babe Studio for producing such a powerful series. It has been a pleasure collaborating with Queens Village and Jeni Jenkins through our Collab program. Collab is a public education program aimed at collaboratively working with local artists to creatively engage the community through unique experiences. We are extremely grateful for the success and partnership and look forward to working with you all in the future. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce teaching artist and the visionary behind Fierce, Jeni Jenkins. Jeni Jenkins is a visual activist and social practice artist invested in enabling positive social impact by extending her practice outside the studio and into the social context. Jenkins is passionate about the role of art in transforming individual lives and communities. Please welcome Jeni Jenkins. Sorry.
Thank you, Carla. While fierce is my vision, it isn't my story. It's not about me, it's about we. Bits and pieces of my own story are tied to the phenomenal women represented in Fierce. We are bound, connected, entwined, our intersecting sorrows, joys, losses, and wins allied. We, as Black women, are necessarily involved in the struggle for racial equality and an ongoing struggle for our own liberation from a dehumanizing system of racism, a system that still refuses to see our worth, to value our lives, to believe we are more than the sum of the stereotypes assumed to define us. But regardless of the system, we know our worth. We know our value. We know our truths. We know better. This knowledge makes us fierce. With roots that reverberate across 4 centuries of protest and political and economic struggle, Fierce is built from the same energies that have sustained other movements for social change. Those energies were and continue to be driven by a desire for a more just and equitable society. The refusal to listen to the voices of Black women is part of the equity equation. Race is a social construct that engenders racial disparities. Eradicating racial disparities requires social engagement. Social engagement leads to equity. To achieve equity, we must first activate empathy. To activate empathy, we must first humanize. To humanize, we must first value people regardless of their differences. To value, we must understand the lives of people who are different than us. To understand, we must listen. There is value in subjectivity and personal experience. We must listen to individual voices as well as collective voices. Validating the voices and experiences of Black women will move us from an unjust society to a just one, from inequitable to equitable. And with that, up first we have the powerful voice of Keisha Easley from College Hill.
Some energy, y'all. Give us some energy. Come on, come on, come on, come on.
Thank you, Jeni. I like to donate this poem to my grandmother, Emma Harris, who had passed along last year, and my mother. Descendants of guardians in the heat of the deep South, red dirt on my boots with a tall glass of lemonade in my hand, Mother Nature shining down on me, sweat beading on my nose, humidity so thick you can taste it on your tongue, sweat dripping, tilling, plowing, raking with my baby on my back. I am resilient. I am indestructible. Don't get me wrong. I cry, I worry, I fall, but I get back up. My ancestors are with me. They lay the land they passed down to me, I will pass down to mine. Motherhood is a part of my legacy. My connection to gardening is a part of my legacy. My solidarity to the land is my legacy. As the sweat beads on my nose, I refuse to give up. The soil is my foundation. My roots penetrate deep. The seeds I planted are blossoming, and the fruit of my labor is not in vain. The harvest is yet to come, sweet fruit from the harvest to nurture my soul. Mother Nature, rain down on me. Fill me up. Ancestors, be proud. Descendants, carry the torch. I'm a bad mama jamma. I am a sister. I am fierce, and this is my motherhood story.
Such a powerful piece from Keisha. Thank you so much for giving us that grace. Next, we'll have Queen Desiree, the silent poet, Hosley from Mount Healthy.
Three generations of women, effortlessly Black in America, in our being, celebrated in our birthright, legendary, legacies already written, personified, amplified on this page through family trees and heartbeats that are rhythmic to our ancestry. Three generations of women, birthing children without a roadmap, birthing children embracing our ancestral roots, pumped through our blood vessels, creating our courage, destined in our foundation. There is such beauty in knowing that we are the extension of their heartstrings that empowers healing, vibrating higher, being magical. Regardless of our trauma, we see power. In the coils of our locks, our feet grounded to the strength, rebirthing beyond our future, three generations of uplifting our truths, binding our HerStory through laughter and love. This lineage is grander than I know. Wrapped in old wives' tales and folklore, superstitions cradled in our bellies. Whether we hang high or low in childbearing, yet these generations stayed pointing high, awaiting to be the next queen, to carry the crown of resilience, pushing past the doubters and naysayers. We hold the crown of determination and breaking boundaries. Three generations of women, proud to be tenacious, purposeful, divine, bold, and of empowerment, fierceness, yet defined simply as a Black woman.
Yes. Beautiful, beautiful. Next up, we will have Queen Chanel Stevens from West Price Hill.
Bloom, the art of growth. To bloom, they say, is to produce, to be fully expressed, to mature, I was birthed as a bud. I was laid out on concrete with little light, and the water was scarce. Yet I was a bud, destined to bloom. Bloom from a place with little room, a mama in love with the weed wrapped tightly around the roots of life. Yet I, the bud, was destined to bloom into something bright. From the soil of struggle, lack of education, and little faith, how was the bud to grow? To bloom, they say, when her soil was lightly sprinkled, water shallow, and light blocked by the sorrow, there was a big flower overseeing it all, praying and working and mending and tending to create a path of greatness. Bloom. She knew I needed her nutrients, her love, her peace. As the path was laid, rooted in her love, nutrients, and peace, the bud began to find her roots deep in the path and set free. The bud blossomed. It grew from the concrete, boldly, bright, and free. A mom, fierce and free, a bud of love, and ready to be concrete. And ready to be concrete, couldn't stop the blooming bud. Little soil, little water was not enough to keep the bud from blooming. Big flower, oh, she knew. She saw the bud as a blossoming truth, fierce, bold, free. That bud is me.
Absolutely, that bud is you, Chanel. Absolutely. The next poet that we will have will be Iwainiki Moore Hawkins from Woodlawn.
Listen, listen, oh listen to black women. Listen to black women. Listen to her breathe. Listen. Could you imagine being at your post checkup and then the very next day ending up in the ICU? Listen, I could barely look her in her eyes while lying on the table. She looked at me and said, "Oh, honey, it's just because you're a new mother. You're exhausted." Listen, I took her sentiments as the truth and headed home. That evening, I struggled. I couldn't even eat one of my favorite meals, chicken and rice that my grandmother had made for me. My husband thought I was overreacting. Listen, I went to bed that night praying that it wasn't a heart attack, praying for another day. Listen, my husband was on the phone with the hospital. She's gasping for air in her sleep. He knew at this moment I was in need. At this moment, I was validated. Listen, he got his little family together, speeding across town, got us to the hospital as soon as he could. He pulled up to the same place, same hall, 8 days prior, 9 months pregnant, same hall. 9 months pregnant, floated to give birth. Just for now, 8 days later, same hall, 8 days later, felt like a football field, winded, sluggish. My feet and legs weighed a ton, swollen, body filled with fluids. Yet all I wanted was for someone to listen. hospital staff met me with a wheelchair, wheeled me to triage, checked my vitals. Listen, they began to scurry around and started calling for backup. Noticed that there was a problem. Extra special care, they said. Yet, fear began to settle in. But your baby can't come with you. Now sadness settled in my heart. Separation is never easy, especially after giving birth 8 days ago. Listen, escorted to the ICU, wheeled down to this dark and cold place, felt like it was in a basement, with white curtains and people clinging on to life, yet I felt full of life. Listen, why am I here? Poking and drawing blood, getting fluids off my body, circulation boots to heart monitors, to bloodlines streaming from the same place that I gave birth, to becoming an experiment. With excitement, they listened to the crackle in my lungs. Yet, all I wanted to do was breathe. Listen, 3 to 4 days in the ICU, then transferred up to the maternity ward, but this time with no baby. Relearning to pump just to dump with no baby. Learning to become nurturing. Listen, my baby needed me. She needed a mother, but I didn't feel like I knew how to mother. Didn't know if this role was for me. Listen, brand new black mother, halted by needing to take care of self. Interruption into my black motherhood. Felt like it was a threat to this black mother, that this black child would be a champion in this world. Listen to black mothers. Hear them. See them. Believe them, because our black children need us. Listen.
Yes, beautiful and powerful. Listen to black women, trust black women, and pay black women, okay? Our next poet is Murray from Clifton. Ritual in the healing.
There are some very dark memories locked away in my mind. I used to wonder how my mother, sister, and I survived the things we did. But as I grew and became stronger, I was able to look back with more clarity. And I see that it is the rituals of love, care, and our spiritual practices that pulled us through. I think back to early mornings, my sister and I taking our turns sitting between our mother's legs, the smell of pink lotion stirred with hot water in a supersized McDonald's cup, edges pulled tightly back, bound with love into a perfectly coiffed Afro puff. I remember Friday nights, jumping up and down on her bed, singing and crooning Anita Baker into the hairbrushes and shampoo bottles. These memories and rituals don't eliminate the darkness, but they shine a light. And we sought the light, fervently, eventually spending every Sunday at church from Bible study at 9 a.m. through devotional service, worship service, choir, and praise dance practice, and then helping our mother to be a good steward of the church. I'm not sure how healthy that was. We were running towards the light or away from the darkness. For me, it was the latter, and it eventually caught up to me. There is a ritual to the crumbling of herbs, the licking and sealing of paper as thin as Bible pages. I exchanged that light for fire and attempted to burn my way through the dark. Failing that, I cherished the haze of smoke that I hid behind. But one cannot hide forever. I found that in running from the darkness of my past, I had been ignoring the darkness growing within me, and one day, I found the courage to seek it out. I brought candles and incense with me, continued to carry scriptures for protection, and I began to confront the lies that had been told about me and the world around me. That love must come with pain, that the odds are stacked against me, so I should just accept my lot in life, that my intelligence is a curse, that my sensuality makes me dirty, that I will never be able to bear children because my uterus is tilted and my cervix is off-centered. I sat down in that darkness and built an altar to the light. I cleansed myself. I dressed my candles, skin, and scalp in oils, and contemplated my mother's love and strength. I crumbled every lie, rolled it, and blew smoke as a tribute to my grandmother who never made herself or her womanhood small to appease those around her. I lit the candles and I prayed, and I listened, and I heard whispers of abundance. Tiny tendrils of light began to pry my eyes open. I gazed around and tried to find the source, and saw a small sun at my center, with a tiny seed taking root. There is healing in the ritual, and growth in the healing. Ashe.
Surviving the diagnosis. Monday, July 18th, 2011, at 6:38 p.m., our prince was born, Alexander, weighing 6 pounds, 14 ounces. We were so ready to love, hug, and teach him how to be a successful young man. But what we were not ready for was the news we received spring of 2013. At this time, Alex was 3 and attended a great Head Start program. I began to notice his speech was not as smooth as it should be at that age. He was not able to answer simple yes or no questions. He would reply by saying the last 2 to 3 words that I spoke to him. Soon after that, I was approached by one of his Head Start teachers. She had concerns about Alex's communication and socialization skills. She recommended we get Alex evaluated to get a better understanding about what was going on. Once Alex started his evaluation process, the first diagnosis was delayed speech. As the process went on, his primary characteristics pointed to autism. This whole process, it tore me and my husband up piece by piece. We couldn't help but think we did something wrong, and why was this happening to us? The team of professionals who diagnosed Alex advised me to take him out of his current Head Start program and enroll him in a school for autistic children, stating that he would not be able to make it in a regular class setting. They also said he would never be able to pretend play, and a long list of other things that he would never be able to do. Me and my husband were already at our lowest point. I felt like they were stumping us harder and lower into the ground. But what they did not know is how many times I read to Alex while I was pregnant. All the enriching things I taught him up to this point, how we use yoga to drown out the negative, toxic energy, calm and relax our spirit, manifest success in our lives. What they did not know is how big my faith was and the favor that God had over our lives. Alex immediately started speech therapy. In August 2016, he graduated Head Start, knowing more than what he needed to enter kindergarten. September 2016, Alex started kindergarten. He made the dean's list, honor roll, scored the highest on math and reading standardized tests. Listen, I want to inspire, encourage caretakers of children with autism. It is not a death sentence. You do not have to accept the limitations that are put on your child's life. Each child is different, therefore it's always a different outcome. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying I don't cry and get frustrated sometimes. But what I am saying is I'm gonna wipe those tears and continue to educate my son, be his voice, fight for him, make sure I do everything in my power to make sure he succeeds. And this is how we survive the diagnosis.
Our next poet that we will hear from is Carla Belcher from North College Hill.
Keep your energy going to the top.
Everyone has something to say. In Haiti, they seemed cautious of me. In Cuba, they treated me like a queen. In Brazil, they looked down upon me. In America, I was a surprise because 25 years ago, flight attendants didn't fly while pregnant. It wasn't the norm. It was something they didn't have to make accommodations for. But I was given this gift growing inside of me. I would walk proud with my prince inside of me, demanding respect. Whether it was just my perspective, it became my reality of survival. I would walk with my head high, and people would stare. What was it because I was black, a flight attendant, pregnant, Who is she? How dare she? She is a black queen. Criticism comes in all shapes and sizes, but the way to block the judgments of others was to be in my own fierce world, all in my head, but yet in my world. Regardless of the thoughts I found, strength in knowing that I was powerful. In Haiti, they seemed cautious of me. In Cuba, they treated me like a queen. In Brazil, I was looked down upon. In America, I was a surprise. After having my son, I found this enormous sense of loneliness. I knew I would not do this again alone. Yet I did whatever I had to do legally to take care of my son. I felt like I consumed myself with my son, but through family, friends, and my church, provided the stability he needed growing up. Over the years, my dad especially supplied that vital support for me and my son until his passing. I realized in his death there was no greater love. He left me so many gems that keep me going to this day. My father died while I was in the hospital. I had just had surgery, and I never felt so helpless in my life. From my dad's death, I started to see life differently. I started to see the world through his eyes, and I found a new sense of joy. Until sickness plagued me. I have Crohn's disease, and I was taking one of those biologic medicines. I started catching all these strange viruses and becoming really sick. The sad part is that no one believed me, not even my doctor. As soon as I told her I was applying for disability, she became a different person. Now, this is someone I have been seeing since I was 12. She turned absolutely hateful towards me, a monster. She was so preoccupied with proving I wasn't sick, she missed the key clues that I was seriously ill. 2.5 years went by before I finally got a second opinion. That doctor was my saving grace, but the damage was already done to the point of no return, and I grieved my old self. Being sick and off work, I found a love of public service and started to immerse myself into the community work, which has brought me a great sense of peace. In Haiti, they seemed cautious of me. In Brazil, I was looked down upon. In Cuba, they treated me like a queen. In America, I'm a warrior, a conqueror. I am fierce.
Yes. You are fierce, honey. Yes. Our next poet that we will hear from is Tosan Quarrels.
So this is my story. Go give the baby to Jocelyn and go sit down. I'm an independent woman. I'm fierce and strong. As a female engineer, I'm rough and tough. I'm a woman with a big heart, and I have lots of love to share. I love kids, and I like to spend time with them. And I love being a mother. As an African woman from Nigeria, we're all about family. It's a big deal for a Nigerian woman to have lots of children. Kids love me, and they're always attracted to me anywhere I go. We connect, and I have my way with them, making them happy and feel loved. But as much as I love children, I couldn't get as many as I desire. God blessed me with a son 13 years ago, and since then, I've been on my knees praying for another child or other children. I long to breastfeed a baby again. My son always asks me for a brother or a sister. I feel bad because I couldn't give him one. He's lonely, he's bored, but I tried to make him happy as much as I could. I have had sleepless nights crying and praying to get pregnant, but I didn't give up. I'm fierce, and I'm hopeful, and I'm determined. Amazingly, God has blessed me with another child, a daughter, and I'm holding her right now. But he said I can't wait to hold her in my hands because she's on her way, but she's here now. As hard as it was, the pregnancy, okay, because of my age, being 41 last year, now I'm 42. The doctor said I had gestational diabetes, it was high risk, I had high blood pressure. I went through a lot, but I'm fierce and tough. And as a black woman, I believe I'm going to go through it. I went through it, and I came out triumph with my beautiful baby girl in my hands.
Our next poet will be Gabrielle Gates from East Walnut Hills.
So the title of the piece is Still I Rise. I grieved my children long before I had the opportunity to celebrate them. A combination of bad genetics and sex as a substitution for love left me in a hospital room, 19, in an ugly blue gown, being told that I, the preschool teacher, would not be able to have kids. My eyes welt as proof that emotions physically manifest. I wish I could lay on my own chest as I weep, the last of a dying breed inked on my sleeves. I pray to God my soul to keep. God has an almost comical way of saying go or be pushed. My unhealed resentment for my own mother drove me into motherhood trying to prove a point. My trauma surfaced as perfectionism. Ignorant ass ego in my ear, telling me I had to be the perfect mom when I hadn't even mastered myself. Those around me saw what I possessed and celebrated its potential. I only saw my inadequacies and shortcomings of the bogus ass expectations I set for myself. The mind can be a tricky place if you don't know how to navigate your thoughts. I was afraid to be a bad mother, but weakness only shows up when you fear that what's before you is more than what you already possess. It's magic and illusion, a breeder of confusion. Motherhood, in my opinion, is the physical manifestation of God's selfless love. For an undetermined amount of time, you are mentally, physically, financially, and emotionally connected to something outside of yourself. Pregnancy is a whole nother ballpark. But motherhood says you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. We should teach women how to respect the miracle occurring in their body. We are the vessel. We should also respect women who decline and make space for women who don't enjoy it. Everyone's working with what they have, and we all have something to offer. Limiting motherhood to childbirth is like saying a free throw is basketball. God bless the 7th grader who made dinner and checked homework, cleaned dishes and got out school clothes between pimples, periods, and pop quizzes, whose motherhood journey began long before she could talk to boys. The big sisters and big cousins who somehow inherited the responsibility to give love that they hadn't always received. Those are our angels. Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth. The numbers are the same for our babies. I was often treated like Easter candy in July, discarded and disrespected by medical staff for being young, Black, unmarried, and poor. Preeclampsia flirting with my life in both pregnancies due to inadequate care. The urgency of preterm pregnancies birthed impatient Geminis who would later save my life. The irony. I respect that they came on their own terms. In my mind, I replay the day my water broke like an SNL skit. I was home alone, 35 weeks pregnant, and losing my mind. My body that was made for this said, nah, not anymore. To feel her transition through my body changed me. She was 4 pounds and 2 ounces of greatness, healthy, alert, and beautiful. She set her standards that day. My son was cut out of my body at 26 weeks due to issues with my placenta. I remember saying a prayer on a white table with lights above me, then waking up in a room. I have no memory of the birth of my 2-pound warrior. My brain and body are still recovering from that attack. One of the many lessons for me, relinquish control. Walking away from my son in the NICU every day made me realize strength I didn't know I had. He did 92 days in the system before he took a breath of fresh air. His journey is powerful. I'm blessed to be the guide. I learned that what I was creating was not to be shared with temporary lovers. This is not for the weak or undeserving. Even I had to be rebirthed into a person I had never met because that's what they deserve. Inside my grandmother's womb, my ancestors decided it would be me. Since 1992, when I was still 3, walking alone in the tea, a young God, bare feet with baby teeth, who knew it would be me to turn up their legacy, clumsy, kind of funny, smelling like pee, reversing all these curses, scars turn masterpiece. Thanks.
Next poet is Adelia Powell Bainey.
I am not what I seem. In the most basic way, that started with my parents. My mom is white, my dad is black. When my tall, green-eyed, blonde-haired mother would drop me off at school, the kids would ask, "Are you adopted?" At first glance, depending on whose glance it is, I can look white, black, Lebanese, Mexican, Indian, Middle Eastern. I feel like a chameleon. I can blend in anywhere, or nowhere, depending on how you look at it. When my dad's mother, my Grandma Bev, died, she left 2 young children around my age in the care of my parents. Eyes followed our caravan at the grocery store, a black man, a white woman, 4 mixed kids, and 2 black children. Us kids were giddy to just be out somewhere else, and my dad would let one of us ride on the back of the cart while another one of us pushed. I felt unique and like people watched us because they were jealous of how beautiful our family was. My parents divorced when I was around 12. My mom remarried to a white man in our church named Danforth Goff, who had been teaching my brother guitar. Danforth was a hemophiliac. That means the slightest bump or bruise, he would bleed severely whenever that happened. His condition required him to receive blood transfusions. When he was around 13, he went to the doctor for a transfusion. The needle the doctor used hadn't been cleaned properly, and because of that, he contracted HIV. Danforth was a prayerful man, and he was a family man who taught us how to do laundry and manage money, and that was all good and well, but what I wanted to learn was guitar. When I asked him to teach me, he talked about how painful the calluses were. Maybe he'd seen too many students give up, but he finally did give in. Before bed each week, he'd sit awkwardly on the edge of my bed with his guitar and teach me a chord. 3 years after they married, he died. His immune system was so weak from hemophilia and HIV that when he found out there were tumors in his brain, his body wasn't strong enough to fight it off. Danforth left me his guitar, and I grew up and became a musician, and in a way continued one of his greatest passions. At 18, I moved against my family's wishes and gave up my spot at Ferris State University for the unaccredited Christian music program in Kansas City, Missouri. There, I met Jake. We dated in January and married in December. He was kind, content, and most of the things I wanted to be. Some of my family saw us as too young to get married, but some things you just know, and I wasn't going to be talked out of a good decision. Jake had been working with an adoption group and wanted to adopt someday. We had mismatched dreams because I wanted to be a touring musician. But we are fortunate that we have lived both of our dreams. Elijah was adopted when I was 23 and he was 4. That's the other way I've been misunderstood. In my 20s, it seemed like people expected me to be a typical 20-something, but I was married, a mother, and a deeply spiritual Christian. The way Elijah came to us was special. My positive pregnancy test was the phone ringing and a social worker on the other end telling me there was a little boy named Elijah. Someone else told me my baby's name. My ultrasound was the round table meeting at the cabinet when I heard all about him from the social workers and the grandparents unable to take care of him. Before I saw him, I learned he liked cherry tomatoes. They passed me a photo of him. In it, you could see 1,000 worlds behind his glassy blue eyes. My baby shower was going to Target and buying a Thomas the Train blanket, kids' toothpaste, and a stepping stool so we could reach the sink. His first night with us, he was a giddy ball of silly energy. After dinner, I wanted to buy him some new shoes, but he started to cry and didn't stop until he fell asleep. My labor was the court dates, where I had to wait and see what the judge would say. His birthday into our family was September 23rd. Elijah banged the gavel and chose his new middle name, Joseph. 2 years after we adopted Elijah, our daughter was born. I describe autumn trees to her and whisper to my belly all the things she had to look forward to. My body pulsed with adrenaline each time I heard her heartbeat at the midwife's appointment. One afternoon in a coffee shop, my water broke. When I got to the hospital, the midwife kick-started my slow labor with Pitocin, and the drug crashed over my body like an ocean wave. Every 5 minutes, I huffed a Kleenex sprayed with peppermint oil to keep from vomiting. The next day at around 11:30 at night, Sophia Magdalena was born. Throughout my life, I've been seen through the foggy lenses of others. They have not seen me right and have thought me too white or too black, too young or too naive. But I have made the choice to see myself. I won't check any black or white box. I can't suspend my whiteness for my blackness or my blackness for my whiteness. They both just are. I am living proof that no one can be born black and not exult. I reserve the right to not ever be too old, to have a career in music, to adventure, to travel, or take a risk, or young, for love, to marry, to become a mother, for anything. I am young and wise. I am content and I have longing. I embrace my mystery. It's good that people can't tell who I am, because they could never be able to tell who I am by just looking at me. I am Beverly McKissick's granddaughter. I am sweet potato pie in Creole, Louisiana. I am Dan Gould's granddaughter. Potato pancakes and music in my blood. I am Haiti. I am America. I am Germany and Wales too. I am what the school kids call Oreo. I am the lighter sister. I am a part of everything.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. All of you all's stories have been so inspiring tonight, and I just want to thank you all for being vulnerable and for sharing your truths. And to our audience and viewers, thank you for listening to Black Women. Thank you to Jeni Jenkins for having the vision and the drive and the creativity to bring fears to life. Congratulations to you, Jeni. And to the Contemporary Arts Center for creating space for Black women to be heard, seen, and celebrated. Luckily, the show will continue to live online on the FierceHerStory.com website at a 3D exhibition and where you can buy the original prints. Thank you and good night.